anyone who is listening, who's tuning in and checking us out and seeing what we're all about. My name is James Orman, and I'm the founder and executive director of Autism on the Go and the Neurodivergent Advocacy and Resource Group. And we're here with other members of our Autism on the Go Media and Entertainment Committee talking a little bit about what we're going to be doing for our media and entertainment arm. And before we really get into it and start talking about things, I'll go ahead and have you all introduce yourself, the other people on the call. And I'll call on the first one that I see on my screen here. We'll go with Alex first. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Alex McCray. I am sort of a fly on the wall in these things. Think of me as more of an advisor to Autism on the Go.
Love it. Love it. And Rosanna, you're next.
Right as I was munching chocolate. This is my time of day to be eating chocolate. But yes. Hi, my name is Rosanna Tufts, and I'm also a member of Autism on the Go, having transferred over from a previous incarnation of this group. And I've been doing a lot of work also for People on the Go, our parent organization that helped us get up and running. And I am a late diagnosed autist at the age of 64. I am self-identified. I've not actually had a formal medical evaluation, but being able to recognize this in myself and navigate the world now, knowing that I'm autistic, has been a real game changer for me. So I'm happy to be able to share my failure stories from before and my success stories for now.
Love that. I love that. Thank you, Rosanna. And last but not least, Ash, welcome.
Hi, my name is Ash. I am part of the board Autism on the Go. I am the international branch in Canada, the unofficial branch. And I am someone who likes to pop up anywhere and everywhere when people are talking about neurodivergency. So that's why I'm here.
I love that. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for talking to our listeners. And just a quick introduction to what we do at Autism on the Go, Neurodivergent Advocacy and Resource Group, is we're here to be a place for people who identify as autistic or neurodivergent to speak in their own ways, to communicate about what they want to communicate about, and to do it in safe and welcoming spaces that are set up and designed and built for and by them. We don't just have programming that's for autistics, it's also by, and that we find that to be really important because being able to create and talk in our own spaces allows us to do it in our own fresh and unique ways and in ways that are authentic to us, but are also our own. And I think through that and in those spaces, we can find our uniqueness, but we can also find true, genuine connections in ways that we can't in other spaces because we have to mask or we have to do things the way that other people do it. And it's not authentic, it's not genuine, and it does not allow us to connect because it's not real. So I like that we can create these real spaces and have these real spaces. And I think the first question I want to ask, and I'll direct it to Rosanna. Rosanna, what are some ways in which you have experienced non-inclusive spaces in the past? And what do you want to do for inclusive spaces with this group?
For non-inclusive spaces, well, let's see. I experienced very early what it feels like to be persecuted and not knowing why, never really even getting a good answer as to what was so terribly wrong with me that my schoolmates thought that I didn't deserve to even exist, let alone go to the same school. Simply never made sense. So then by the time I got to high school, by then transferring to a different school in a different town where nobody knew me, it's not that I didn't want to make friends, I just didn't know how. And I went through high school very successful academically, but really socially awkward. And I'm sure people must have looked at me and thought, why is she so weird? When I got to college and grad school, and I found other people who had similar interests to me, that was a big game changer. I still didn't know that I was autistic, but at least I found my tribe, as it were. And we're talking about the 1980s at this point. Still not very much awareness of what autism or neurodivergence in general even was at that point. The very term neurodivergent wasn't coined until I think it was 1997. It was an enormous relief to me to be able to be in a space and have friends that I could talk to about everything from soup to nuts. And some of them have been lifelong friends since then.
I love that. Great answer, Rosanna. And Ash, I want to ask you, I think, a different question, but along the same lines, which is when you think about the inclusive spaces and ones that are safe and welcoming, what do they look like? And, sort of use some of your experience with maybe non-inclusive spaces to inform that.
Let me think. I think I'll have to give an example of myself. I've managed spaces, so managing spaces is a way to make a space welcoming. And because I work in the arts for about 15 years in theater and stage managing, I have to be the one to create that safe space or that welcoming space, especially when we're working with a lot of intense stories and whatnot. And in the arts, funny enough, there's a lot of neurodivergent people in it. So you have to meet them halfway and figure out their needs and also how you can communicate your needs and almost have sort of a openness to yourself when approaching other people. And because of the way I've worked, people can be honest, more honest, easier to be honest with. And so when they're having worry and whatnot, they are comfortable to come to me or to people and say something, even the uncomfortable stuff. They know that they can. And sometimes it's just as easy as that, making sure that it's like, hey, if there's something crazy going on with you, just say it and we'll figure it out. And that's usually what I think is a safe space. It doesn't have to be that complicated. I think it just has to be like that. And you have to be mindful of that kind of awareness that other people are in different spaces in their life. And you have to sort of figure out, navigate that.
Yeah, I love that, right? The openness is so important to a safe and welcoming space. And Alex, I want to pivot to you for this next question because I know that we've all have experienced non-welcoming spaces and spaces that are not open. And currently, a lot of the spaces that are out there are not neurosensitive and they're not open and they're not friendly, they're not welcoming. And we all have to live in those. But Alex, tell me about some of your experience of living in those less friendly spaces, and what have you seen from your, as you said, kind of like a fly on the wall status from our spaces? What do you see as some of the big differences and the ways that that affects people?
That is an excellent question. And I think that as Rosanna and Ash were answering theirs, I was thinking about my job. I was thinking about how I come at this at a slightly different angle than most neurodivergent individuals. Rosanna, like you, I don't quite yet have a formal diagnosis. I'm working on it. It's something that I think is important for me because I act in ways that seem quite normal in society. And it's easy for me. Easy is not the right word. Automatic. It's quite challenging. It's taxing to do this, but I work in a space that's very corporate. It's not very neurosensitive. And it's mainly about deadlines and producing and wow factor often. And then I look at organizations like yours, which take a completely different look at work and how people perform and what they produce and how they can produce. And you make it such that neurodivergent individuals have an opportunity here to produce and perform at their own rate, at their own pace, and it's okay. And the work still gets done and people enjoy it and they're passionate. So I find it fascinating that that actually does work. The other stuff works too, but people get burnt out.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
they get significantly burned out and sometimes they get left behind. And I think it can be really tricky to navigate those spaces because you don't want to be left behind. You always want to feel included. And especially if you're, supposed to be producing or making some sort of value out of yourself, you need some room to fail. You need some room to do it at your own pace, and you need some room to struggle because everybody does.
So well said. So well said. Thank you, Alex. And it's something that we should probably touch on at this point is what it means to be neurosensitive or non-punitive, which are what our spaces are, what we intend to create. And of course, as you probably heard it in this episode so far, the ways in which things are neurosensitive are very attuned to how people specifically do things specifically on their own and within themselves. How is it that they function best given the most access and all of the needed supports? How do they function best? And allowing for them to function best and in their own way and in those spaces. In my estimation, that is a truly neurosensitive space. And I find that when people operate in their own ways, you do get the most or the best out of them because that is how we function best, is when we can be our best selves. And when we're told to go into these little boxes or follow these little paths and straying off the path is wrong or bad or we can't do it, it's going to cause extra problems, extra anxieties, extra ways of sapping our energies and now not allowing us to give our best. So I think a truly neurosensitive space is one that allows us to grow and display ourselves in the ways that we prefer without any undue burden or influence. And the non-punitive aspect, non-punitive meaning without punishment, I was raised that if someone isn't doing something up to standard or up to par, they are to have it punished out of them. They are to be told that they're doing something bad or wrong and to be reprimanded or to be scolded or to be, in other ways, like physically told that they shouldn't be doing things that way because that's quote unquote the wrong way. I have learned that the way that is the most right way is the way that it is done with the most intention and the most try. And if you have intention and try, that is the best way every single time, which means if you mess up, you mess up. If you have an error, you have an error. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Learn from it. Try to do something more intentional in a different way next time. But to try and punish out an error is also a way sometimes of punishing out a lesson. I like to say I'm a lifelong learner. And what that means is I like to take all opportunities to learn. And I know personally, I learned so much more from a failure than a success. What the heck do I have to learn from a success? I did it right the first time. So if I have a failure and I can really learn and not have to get down on myself for that, I can grow, I can be different, but in my own way. And I can be better in my own way and be able to do the thing that I wanted to in the best way that I could without having someone try and quote unquote punish it out of me. So all of which is to say these spaces being both neurosensitive and non-punitive, they're designed, very intentionally designed to allow us to be our best selves with as little influence as possible, but with all of the supports and all of the acceptance that allows us to display ourselves the best way possible. So I love that we're able to do that and to create those spaces for others. And I think I'll ask one more question of each of you before we call it a podcast. And I think we'll go in the same order again. And I'll ask Rosanna. Rosanna, we talked, I think, previously, you might have been in that meeting about the things that we could do and the ways that we can have people come on and do their own, talk about their special interest or talk about a topic that is really of interest to them in particular. What do you think the effect of that could be on a small scale, right? For those people to be able to speak about their special interests, or on a larger scale either in our community or larger than that. What do you think some of the effects of having those conversations could be?
In terms of having a person come on as a guest who wants to talk about what their special interest is, you can get some really great content out of that because the person is going to be enthusiastic about it, whatever the topic is. And that's contagious in its own way. And you can learn a lot of hidden details about things that had never occurred to you before. And you can also it can be a lot of fun depending upon what the topic is. I'll tell you one that I did recently on another show where I did a highly visual version of a podcast because I was talking about silent movies. Movies from the very early years of cinema, like the first 30 years, and showing video clips of how the art evolved from scratch, from nothing until it became what it is today. And that was a lot of fun to do. And if you're talking about your special interests, you can feel like, hey, you're not so weird after all for being so passionate about this.
Heck yeah. I love that. I love the idea that we can be weird and that's totally normal in our spaces.
See, for me, weird was always a good word. Like weird is a good word. I love being weird because weird people change things. Like people don't read books on like here's a person who did everything normal and went by the book. Hell no.
Oh,
They read about the weird people, and I love weird people, so I love weird.
It's true. The characters in movies and TV that are like the most interesting are the ones that are the most neurodivergent.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
And also the ones we identify the most with. Like obviously we as neurodivergents, but I also think people are like, oh, like I totally got that character, what they did on the other,
Yep.
and it's like, yeah, because they're real. They're actual
Yeah.
people. Like Yeah.
nobody likes the perfect character. There's
No.
actually a name for that trope. They call it the Mary Sue.
Ooh.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I've heard that. The Mary Sue, the
The
one
person who's a little bit too good at everything, has no flaws.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, that's not an interesting character. That's a character that doesn't do anything wrong
Yeah.
or weird or strange. It's very predicted and expected and all the things.
Hmm.
Then my next question then to Ash, and almost don't even need to ask the question because you gave the answer already,
Oh,
which
whoops.
was yeah, no, it's good, right? Which is
Yeah.
why would people want to listen to people like us when we get out there and talk about our things?
Well, it would be how I kind of was learning about this is not through reading books, because reading books gives you information, but people give you the nuance of things, of society and how people move through the world. And so that's a benefit because then when you start listening, you start going, oh my God, that's like me. And then you get curious about yourself, which maybe some people haven't been curious about themselves before in a safe space. So hearing other people talk about things, even things as fun or silly or whatever, it's almost like, oh my God, I actually like this kind of stuff. And so it feels natural to do it and speak about things because yeah, it is interesting. I find it interesting. I'll listen to the podcast.
I would too, just not for the similarities. I think I would listen for the differences where
Yes.
people's brains do work a little odd or off from mine. That's what fascinates me.
That
Yeah.
I love learning about different cultures. Like even though American and Canadian are similar, there are some things where it's like, oh, that's different, even though, we are quite similar. I love that stuff too when I learned about other people who are from other countries who are autistic and how their society kind of helps or doesn't help those kind of people. So that's what I'm fascinated with too. Yeah.
What part
That's
of Canada
actually really
are you in?
I'm in Ontario.
Ontario, okay.
Yeah.
Like, are you in Toronto? I mean, Ontario's
No, I'm in the capital of Canada, which is
you're in
Ottawa.
Ottawa.
Yeah,
Okay.
not Toronto. People think
Okay.
that, but no. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the works of Charles de Lint, the fantasy,
Uh,
many of which are
the-
set in Ottawa?
no,
Okay,
what is
look him up. Charles de Lint.
Charles Didn't.
Start
We
with
needed
a
one of
novel
these
called
moments.
Moonheart. Okay, folks, you just saw some autistic things info dumping going on right
I
there.
love it. I love it.
Weird special interests. There's an example. We could do a whole
spelled-
podcast just on the works of Charles de Lint.
But
Is it do or di? Do or di?
yeah, how do you spell it?
Charles, like normal, DELINT, like what you find in your navel.
Ah, okay. Delete.
Because one of our listeners is going to be like, wait, I fucking love Charles DeLint. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Now I need to know what the hell Charles DeLint is doing or did
I
do.
don't, but I need to know now.
Yeah.
He seems like a
Oh, he's a
character.
Canadian writer. He's 73.
Yeah.
Still alive.
Fantasy fiction.
I'm trying to think if I've ever read any of the books, because we must have in school.
Rosanna, did you read The Onion Girl?
Don't think I have.
These look really interesting.
Yes.
Well, Alex, I think I'm going to give you the last question.
Yeah,
So now that we've
I'm busy. Okay, I'm busy. You guys keep going.
yeah, I'm gonna order a couple of books. What?
And Alex, I want to give you this last question here before, and then I'll give everyone a last sort of like, just whatever else you want to say. That's very like unbounded by questions. But Alex, I want to give you the last question. And what I'm hearing is there are two big themes that we're going to be putting out there, and it's community and introspection and the intersection between the two. And as you said, there are things that we can listen to that we can identify with, but also things that we can listen to and find different. But when we do these things and when we experience community and experience ourselves amongst others, what does that do for us? Or what do you think happens when we experience those things?
Oh my gosh, a lot of things happen. I think that when we experience things like that, it can put us at ease. It can give us more of a sense of self, just knowing that there are others out there who do things in a different way. I like spaces like this that allow you to just sort of be. And I think that these podcasts can be very fun. I think they can be very freeing. I think they can be very loose. But I also think they can be very educational for people, factual, but also helpful, just to allow people to see how other people live. Some people don't understand, what it's like to be neurodivergent, and they just expect us all to be rocking in our chairs and huddling under weighted blankets. Well, no, sometimes we're on the couch and we're playing with digit toys.
And sometimes we do rock and are under blankets.
Yeah,
not all the time.
Not all the time.
And not everyone.
Certainly not together. Like, get away from me. If we're doing it, I want to be alone. But no, I think this will be very helpful for folks, and not only those that are receiving the message, but those that are, a part of the community. I think it's going to bring them a little bit of comfort, maybe a lot of comfort in certain situations.
I love that. So well said. I do want to just give one last space to you all. If there's anything else you want to say, anything else you want to add, or something else, entirely what you're going to eat for dinner, I'm also open to that too. So take it away, whoever wants to go next.
Well, because I don't like cooking, I'm going to do takeout. And that is how I take care of myself. So
that is also how I take care of myself.
Love it. So yeah, I'm gonna feel it. I don't know what I'm gonna eat, but I'm gonna feel it, and then I'm gonna order. That's what I'm gonna do.
That part. I'm gonna go to a bar and I'm going to order whatever the most comforting thing is at that bar.
Yes. Beautiful.
Well, I actually do my own cooking. In fact, I finished something that right before we started doing this, something that is a staple for me that I can reach into and grab anytime I need to. And it involves taking some chicken parts, drizzling them with avocado oil and salt, sage, and rosemary, and baking them in the air fryer. I've got a nice high protein thing that I can dip into anytime I need to.
Very cool.
Amazing. Amazing. And welcome to James Humphreys, our secretary. And you notice I didn't say treasurer that time. Not this time. Oh my God, I keep doing that and it's so embarrassing. But welcome, James. We're actually just at the end of our recording. And if you would like to introduce yourself, and then I want to give you both a question and some free time. But go ahead and do your intro for yourself, and then I'll ask you the question. So take it away, James Humphreys.
Hello, I am James. I am a third-year psychology major. I'm also minoring in gender and sexuality studies. I grew up in a volatile home and struggled with mental health. And then at 37, found out that I was autistic. And my already existing passion for psychology and mental health increased and I'm on a journey to develop myself to become a better advocate. And that's me.
I love that. I love that. So beautifully said. And welcome, James. The question I have for you is, you've been attending our spaces for a little bit, and I know that you've also taken leadership roles within those spaces. What have you taken from your experience with us, or working with others, or working with yourself? What has been some of the most impactful things that have happened with you in these spaces?
So this month actually is my 1 month anniversary of attending groups that you lead. So it's a year now. And I think one of the things that I think is most important about these kind of spaces is the sharing of our stories and the sort of support and validation we get from each other can be very grounding. Whereas when we are isolated from others who share similar experiences, the sort of guilt and invalidation from the people around you that are not on the spectrum or are not aware they are increases the self invalidation and guilt that increases the more difficult aspects. Whereas coming to group and sort of getting that validation of these are just autistic things can be grounding and diminish and mitigate some of the more negative aspects.
So beautifully said. I love that. And our sort of last sort of like section here was sort of free share. It can be anything and everything, or what we're going to have for dinner, and that's been the theme so far, is what we're going to have for dinner. So if you want to share that to be on the theme, that's or anything else.
This morning for breakfast, I made delicious oatmeal with the works: dried apricot, banana, apple, raisins, blueberries, nutmeg, cinnamon, vanilla. It was amazing and delicious and nutritious, which I sorely needed because I have not been up for cooking and I needed some quality plant material in my digestion. So it was a delight.
Love it. I'll do my share. It's going to be food themed as well. And Alex and I went out this morning to a coffee place I haven't been to. Is my first time, but he's been to a couple times before. Some of the best coffee I've ever had.
Oh my God.
The best coffee with this incredible. Yeah, we got it. We ordered some to go. It was that good. And we got what was it? A croissant? Like
New York
it's called
croissant.
the New York croissant.
Google it.
Is it velvet? Red
Red
velvet?
velvet. This one was red velvet. Oh my God.
Incredible with this like filling. It was almost like it was like cream and
Strawberry
jelly.
jam or jelly.
Oh, wow.
Holy smokes.
It was it was incredible. I so wanted to share that and to have your mouths water because yeah.
And I hope you will actually also share that one day because
Right?
Yes. Yes, yes. How about you, Alex? I think you're
Where
the
do you
last one
find
who hasn't
those?
free shared.
Oh,
Where
I
did you
haven't
find
tasted
that?
Petite Cerise is the name of the cafe, and I think you
Petite
can get those.
All right. So no, I can look for that. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Down in DC near the convention center.
Yeah.
Right?
near the
Oh,
convention
okay.
center.
Way down there.
Yeah.
Dinner. I am going to eat the most comforting thing I can find, whether it's soup or chili or pizza or a cheeseburger. Oh my God, now I'm just hungry. We've had a lot of coffee and not a lot of food, so I think we're gonna go do
Oh,
that.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like this theme of self-care and being able to take care of oneself, because I think, if there's a message I want to leave our listeners with at the end here is things are weird, but not our kind of weird. The kind of weird that like
Bad.
that like yeah, that like we don't want.
Yeah.
But when we're experiencing that, we also have to ensure that we're taking care of ourselves, because those things can be so big, our minds can go on to there and map ourselves onto it in a way that takes us away from ourselves and taking care of ourselves. And so I like that we ended with things and ways that we have taken care of ourselves as a reminder for our audience to please do so as well, because that is really truly how we form our foundations for our best selves, is if we start with ourselves and take care of ourselves in the best way that we know how, and focus on that whenever we can, because that's how we end up doing great and amazing things. So again, thank you everyone for listening to our very first ever recorded podcast for the Neurodivergent Advocacy and Resource Group and Autism on the Go. I'm so happy you all got a chance to listen to us, and we hope for many more of these things to come. So thank you so much, and hope that you can hear from us next time. Bye-bye.